Imagine buying a house today with a 3% interest rate. That's not some fantasy, guys. That was the reality about 4 years ago. In fact, in 2022, I bought my first rental property with a 2.99% interest rate. And as of today, the average 30-year fixed mortgage is sitting above 6%. So that begs the question, guys, will we ever see 3 or 4% mortgage interest rates ever again? That's a legitimate question. Or are the days of 3 and 4% interest rates and cheap money just gone? And everyone who wants to buy a house moving forward has to deal with 5, 6, or 7% mortgage interest rates. Let's take a look now and see what some of the biggest real estate companies are saying about where they believe mortgage interest rates are going to end up in 2026 throughout the rest of this year. Start with Zillow, because Zillow is one of the biggest. Zillow economists predict that the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate, guys, in 2026 is going to be about 5.8%. Zillow also expects existing home sales to rise 6.4%, and that's not saying a lot because we saw home sales at one of the lowest levels in 30 years in the month of January, so that's really not saying a lot. And they also expect home prices to rise about 1 to 2% this year. Redfin and Realtor.com both expect 30-year fixed interest rates to hover in the low 6s and mid 6s this year for the remainder of 2026. So will we see 4% interest rates this year? Probably not, according to these big real estate companies, but I will tell you guys that there could be some saving grace and there could be some relief to mortgage interest rates this spring. Let me explain. And this is the trail that I'm walking on tonight. It's absolutely gorgeous. And make sure you guys are subscribed because we're gonna have a ton of new videos coming this spring and summer. Let's keep going. In the spring, in May, President Trump is gonna get his next pick for the Federal Reserve Chairman to replace Jay Powell. And it's widely expected, guys, that this next Federal Reserve Chairman is going to appease the president and lower interest rates. And this is gonna be a 180 from what current Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has done over the past Fed chair meetings, where he's kept rates the same. And according to economists and prediction markets, guys, it's widely expected that Jay Powell, the current Fed chairman, does not lower interest rates for the rest of his time serving in that position. And he goes till May, so there's gonna be a few meetings in between right now and that moment. But again, it's widely expected that he's gonna hold interest rates the same. But when President Trump gets his pick in May, we could see some relief to mortgage interest rates. But that begs the question, will that make homes more affordable for millions of Americans? I don't think so. I'm really not convinced, guys, that lower interest rates will lead to improved housing affordability for those millions of Americans waiting to get in, because I think it comes down to one simple thing: demand. When interest rates start to drop, I think demand will go through the roof again. And we could see something similar to what we saw during the COVID pandemic, where there were lines around the block waiting to see certain houses in certain markets. That could come back, and housing prices could start to skyrocket again, which would also lead to unaffordability. And if you guys didn't know, this is what those Gen Zers call golden hour. And man, it's just beautiful out here. I'm saying that like I'm not Gen Z myself. Anyway, back to what you came for. In 2021, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate was hovering at about 3%, guys. But in 2022, that shot up from 3% to well over 7% because the Fed was trying to fight inflation, and that destroyed the housing market, by the way, but that's besides the point. And in 2023, 2024, and 2025, guys, we saw mortgage rates hover anywhere between 6, 7, and even up to 7.8%. That is just insane. That makes owning a home completely unaffordable, guys, for so many Americans. And today, in 2026, we're sitting at about 6%, and everyone wants to know, where are we going next? Now, throughout history, guys, when we've seen in the past mortgage interest rates more than double in a short amount of time, like we saw in 2022, it often puts downward pressure on the prices of housing, because think about it, when demand is lowered, that means that prices of homes should come down. But since the COVID pandemic, since interest rates started to rise, we have not seen those sweeping declines in housing prices. In fact, the opposite is happening, guys. We keep hitting a new record for the median price to buy a home, and there is no end in sight. And there's a ton of consequences that come with higher interest rates, but the first and the largest, in my opinion, is that it collapses home affordability. Just think about it. If you own a home with a 3% interest rate versus a 6% interest rate, you can be talking a difference of $5, $6, or $700 every single month. And just think about what that does to a family's budget. That's why right now, first-time homebuyers and families are facing one of the most difficult housing markets in recent history. And another major consequence of higher mortgage interest rates, guys, is that it often ends up driving up rent prices. And we saw this throughout the US in markets all across the country, because what it does is it lowers the demand because more people can't afford with those high interest rates with the monthly payments. So more people have to rent. And what do landlords do? They raise rent prices because they understand that market dynamic. So every time interest rates go up and increase and buyers are priced out, you'll likely see rent prices go up. So the question is, guys, why have we not seen prices decline, especially over the past 4 or 5 years as mortgage interest rates climbed? I think the answer is really simple, and there's been a ton of coverage on it. It's because people are literally stuck in their house. Millions of Americans bought mortgages with 3% or 4% interest rates, and they're not wanting to sell, because why would they sell and give up that mortgage interest rate and go out there and have to buy something with a 6% interest rate? It doesn't make sense for them. And there's actually stories out there, and there's a lot of reporting about couples who have either divorced or separated, but decided to live in the same house because they bought it with such a low interest rate. That is crazy to me. To each their own, but I just want to make you aware. I'll put that headline up. And I've been thinking about mortgage interest rates a lot lately because I'm actually in the market to buy a duplex in New York in the May or June timeframe. And I really don't know what interest rate to expect. Probably something 5.5 to 6%, but I'm actually gonna house hack, live in one side, rent out the other, so I can save on that every month. But man, my mortgage interest rate is gonna be high, way higher than the 2.9% interest rate that I got in 2022. But that's just my prediction, guys. We really have no idea, one, where mortgage interest rates are gonna end up, and two, if mortgage interest rates start to lower, what that's gonna do to the market, what that's gonna do to housing prices. So it's all just speculation at this point. But this is a really important conversation, and I wanna keep collecting rental properties, guys, because one of my goals is to be able to retire early by the time I'm 40. But a lot of these sellers and owners of these properties are being delusional. So something I'm looking forward to is putting in some lowball offers. I think that right now is a prime time to get a deal when you're buying a house. The Wall Street Journal actually recently reported on this. In 2025, about 2/3 of the homes sold for under list price, and the average decrease in price was about 8%. So that tells me that, one, sellers need to sell. When sellers need to sell, they need to sell. The death, divorce, moving for a job, there's a ton of reasons why someone would have to sell, but they're not gonna want their homes to sit vacant, and they're willing to play ball and make some deals. When I buy this duplex, I am not paying full price. I am going to make some lowball offers, and I am going to ask the seller for a ton of closing cost concessions and other concessions, because there's no way that I am paying full list price, especially right now when this housing market is locked up. So what do you guys think of this housing market? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you're subscribed for more. I appreciate all of you. I'm out.